Welcome to Understanding Depression, a space where we explore the realities of depression in a mindful, honest, and compassionate way. If you're new here, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share this episode to support mental health awareness. Your interaction helps us reach more people who might need this message today. Today's episode is called Inner Voice: Overcoming Negative Self-Talk in Depression, and we'll be exploring a very personal, often painful part of depression, that relentless inner critic, the one that whispers, or sometimes screams, messages of worthlessness, failure, and hopelessness. It's a voice that doesn't just speak. It shapes how we see ourselves, how we show up in the world, and whether we feel like we're even allowed to hope. So I invite you to take a mindful breath, settle in, and join me as we gently unpack what this inner voice is, how it forms, and most importantly, how we can begin to change the conversation happening inside our minds. Negative self-talk is that internal dialogue where our minds become their own harshest critics. It's the voice that tells you you're not good enough, smart enough, lovable enough. It says things like, "I always mess up," or "Why even try?" For people with depression, this voice isn't just occasional. It can feel like a constant companion, one that interprets every event in the worst possible way, doubts every compliment, and turns mistakes into proof of personal failure. But here's the thing: that voice didn't come from nowhere. It often has roots in past experiences, harsh parenting, bullying, trauma, societal messages, or even the chemical imbalances of depression itself. And when left unchallenged, that inner narrative becomes our belief system. We start to mistake those cruel thoughts for truth. Now let's zoom out from biology and look at life itself, because many people who experience depression can point to specific life events that played a role. Losing a job, ending a relationship, financial stress, grief. Even a long period of pressure or burnout can become a tipping point. What these experiences have in common is that they disrupt our emotional stability. They can chip away at our sense of control, our self-worth, and our hope. But even smaller, repeated stressors, like being in a toxic work environment or living with constant criticism, can build up over time. And when our brains are constantly trying to cope with stress or pain, it starts to affect how we process emotions, how we see the world, and eventually how we function. That's why depression isn't always triggered by something big. Sometimes it's the accumulation of feeling unseen, unsupported, or overwhelmed day after day. Our early experiences shape how we experience the world. And when those early experiences are traumatic, unstable, or neglectful, they can lay a deep foundation for depression later in life. Childhood trauma, whether it's emotional neglect, abuse, witnessing violence, or growing up in an unpredictable environment, can affect brain development, attachment, and self-perception. Children learn to regulate their emotions from the people around them. If those people were emotionally unavailable, unsafe, or hurtful, that regulation can become dysregulated. It can lead to patterns of self-blame, fear of abandonment, and a constant internal narrative of not being enough. These internal scripts, unless healed, often continue into adulthood and contribute to depressive thoughts and feelings. So no, depression isn't just in your head, but early life experiences deeply impact how your brain and emotions develop. Let's talk génétique. If someone in your family has experienced depression, especially a parent or sibling, you may have a higher risk of developing it too. But let's clarify what that really means. Genetics can make you more vulnerable to depression, but they don't guarantee it. Think of it like a loaded gun. Your genes might load it, but your environment pulls the trigger. Scientists have identified certain genes that may be linked to mood regulation, but depression is polygenic, meaning no single gene causes it. Instead, Many small genetic factors interact with life experiences, so even if depression runs in the family, it's still deeply affected by how you live, how you're supported, and how your body responds to stress. Have you ever noticed that some people seem to bounce back easily from hardship, while others are more deeply affected? Personality plays a role in depression risk. People who are highly self-critical, perfectionistic, or prone to rumination, that habit of overthinking and replaying painful memories, are more vulnerable. These patterns often develop early in life, especially in people who grew up needing to please others to feel safe or loved. Add to that black and white thinking, catastrophizing, or chronic guilt, and you have a mindset that can quietly feed depression from the inside out. This doesn't mean people choose to be depressed, but how we think and how we've learned to interpret our world matters more than we often realize. We are social créatures. Connection isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. And when that's missing, when we feel lonely, unseen, or disconnected, our mental health can suffer. Social isolation, lack of belonging, bullying, discrimination, or even growing up in a household without emotional support, all of these can contribute to depression. It's not about how many people you're around. It's about whether you feel emotionally safe, understood, and valued. That's why people can feel deeply alone even when they're surrounded by others, and why healing often involves not just medication or therapy, but also building healthy, nurturing relationships. It's also important to recognize the connection between physical and mental health. Certain medical conditions, like thyroid disorders, chronic pain, neurological conditions, or hormonal imbalances, can cause or worsen depression. Even some medications, like certain blood pressure drugs or hormonal treatments, list depression as a side effect. This is why medical evaluation matters. If someone is experiencing depressive symptoms, especially suddenly or without clear emotional cause, a doctor should help rule out underlying physical issues. Now here's something essential to understand. Depression is rarely caused by just one thing. It's usually a mix, a complicated, layered, deeply human mix of biology, history, personality, relationships, and life events. And that's why treatment also needs to be multidimensional. For some people, medication helps restore brain chemistry. For others, therapy helps heal trauma and shift thinking patterns. And for many, it's a combination of approaches and support from people who care. There's no one-size-fits-all cause and no one-size-fits-all solution, but there is always a path forward.